When Emma had to inherit the old mansion left by her grandmother after her death, an unexplainable unease took hold of her. The mansion stood on the outskirts of town, near the edge of the forest, a structure of gray stone walls resisting time. Her childhood summers spent there were hazy memories, except for the hours she used to stand silently before a large mirror in one of the rooms. She wouldn't speak, laugh, or move, just stare. Now, years later, the thought of seeing that mirror again was enough to make her skin crawl. As she opened the door, a cold gust of air hit her face. Every corner was covered in dust, and cobwebs dangled from the cracked walls. As she walked through with a flashlight in hand, echoes of her childhood began surfacing in her mind. The wooden floors creaked beneath her feet, and it almost felt like someone else was walking behind her. When she reached the large central hall of the house, her eyes instinctively drifted to the mirror. It was still there and changed, untarnished, almost glowing in the dim light. Emma approached it without knowing why. Her reflection looked tired, but there was a strange shadow in her eyes. The odd part was that the background in the mirror didn't match what was actually behind her. In the reflection, there were old rugs, antique armchairs, and an extinguished fireplace. Yet in the room itself, none of those things existed. She blinked, her breath catching. For a fleeting second, her reflection didn't blink back. That night, she settled into one of the bedrooms on the upper floor. After arranging her things, she began leafing through some old notebooks. Her grandmother had kept journals filled with undated entries. In one, the mirror was referred to as the Gate of Silence. It read, "When opened, it does not release sound, but memories." Emma didn't quite understand, but the air in the room suddenly grew heavy, as if someone were watching her. She turned quickly, no one was there. Yet on the inside of the window pane, there was a single hand-shaped fog mark, as though someone had been standing there. The next morning, Emma returned to the hall to study the mirror again. This time, her pupils dilated as she approached. The mirror no longer looked like a surface. It had depth, like a pool of shifting liquid. When she reached out, she didn't touch cold glass, but something that rippled slightly beneath her fingers. She pulled away, heart pounding. Something was behind the mirror, and it had been waiting. Day by day, Emma began spending more time in front of the mirror. Her reflection started showing noticeable differences. The eyes looked emptier, and the smile. The smile was wider, almost too wide, with slightly sharper teeth. She soon realized that her reflection wasn't mimicking her any more. It sometimes moved first. One night, Emma woke to a whisper. The sound was coming from the hall. As she descended the stairs, she saw a shadow standing before the mirror. When she got closer, she realized the figure was her reflection, but she was in her pajamas, while the reflection wore a black dress. Her face looked pale, her under eyes hollow, and her lips moved in silence. Suddenly, the hall door slammed shut. The reflection tilted its head and smiled. Emma tried to flee, but the door was locked. A chill spread from the mirror, filling the entire room. Her reflection slowly raised a hand and touched the surface. The glass began to ripple inward, like water. The Emma in the mirror stepped forward slightly. From deep within, a voice that once sounded like hers, but now belonged to something else echoed. "It's time to switch places." The next day, an elderly postman passing by claimed to hear screams from the mansion, but no one believed him. When the police arrived, they found no one inside. The bed was neatly made, belongings untouched, but the mirror in the hall was shattered. The shards hadn't scattered outward, they were drawn inward, as if someone had gone through the glass. Everyone who stayed in the house afterward reported strange dreams. Though they had never met Emma, they all dreamt of the same young woman dressed in white, eyes empty, staring into nothingness. In the dream, she always said the same thing. "That wasn't me in the reflection." They thought it was. The town's mirror legend was reborn. Parents warned their children not to go near it. A group of curious teens once spent the night there. One of them was found the next day mute, unable to speak a word except to whisper again and again, "There's another, Emma, inside." From then on, the mansion was declared cursed. No one dared enter again. But some nights, the townspeople still heard sounds coming from the forest, cracking branches, echoing like shattered glass. The truth was locked behind the mirror. Emma was still inside. Whenever she screamed, no one heard her. The world her reflection had taken from her was now unreachable. Just silence. Only the ability to watch through the other side of the glass. Over the years, her image in the mirror faded. The reflection Nima lived a seemingly normal life outside. But anyone who looked deep into her eyes swore there was something missing in emptiness. A darkness that no human could carry. For years, the mirror was kept covered. But one day, when a group arrived to restore the mansion, they removed the cloth. The moment they did, the mirror gleamed once more. One of them froze. In the reflection, she didn't see herself, but a young woman, crying, begging silently for help. The mansion's walls are no longer quiet. Every night, muffled sounds echo from within the mirror. Be careful of your reflection. It might not always be you. Emma's story didn't end, it simply changed sides. Because some mirrors don't just reflect, they replace the unseen presence. Oliver worked at one of the city's oldest shopping stores, tasked with cleaning the fitting rooms. Every morning he would arrive early, organize the empty fitting rooms, remove old clothes, and clean the mirrors. Today, like any other day, he started his shift. But something was different. The usual silence was replaced by an unsettling atmosphere. It felt like someone was watching him. But was it just a feeling, or something real? At first, he attributed this feeling to his tiredness and the lingering effects of a long week. However, the more he cleaned the fitting rooms, the more strange things he noticed. It wasn't just his reflection in the mirrors. There was another shadow. No matter how closely he looked, he couldn't see anyone. There was only a faint sense of something lurking in the rooms. His reflection seemed to carry an invisible presence. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself, but his heart raced. Oliver quickly turned his head and looked around the room, but everything appeared to be in its place. The store was as silent as ever. Still, the unease inside him only intensified. Every mirror seemed to reflect not only him but also something else, something out of place. His mind raced with the thought that there was someone else with him, watching from the corners of the store. But each time he turned, no one was there. As he entered one of the fitting rooms, he noticed a movement in his reflection. He quickly turned his head, but the room was empty. Yet in the mirror, there was a figure for just a moment. When he turned back, nothing was there. Was it a trick of his mind, or was someone truly there? His skin prickled with the sensation of being watched. He studied his reflection once more, but there was no sign of anyone else. His fear grew. It's just a ghost story, he muttered to himself. But the stillness in the room only made the thought feel more real. The doors of the fitting rooms, always slightly ajar, began to creak, as if waiting for someone to enter. The sense of being watched only intensified. Every movement felt like someone was behind him, but when he turned, nothing was there. The cold air from the open doors brushed past him, but no one was inside. Slowly, he moved forward, but with each step, his fear grew. Every reflection, every tiny change in the mirrors, seemed to reveal something different. When he turned around, no one was there. Yet, the reflections, dimmer than usual, showed vague shapes that seemed to disappear when he looked directly at them. He could feel the presence of something close by, but every time he checked, it was gone. As he passed one of the fitting rooms, the door slammed shut behind him. A chill ran down his spine. He had the distinct feeling that someone had seen him, someone who was now inside. He tried to shake off the sensation, telling himself it was just his nerves. But with every step, that feeling of being watched only grew stronger. The mirrors no longer reflected only him, but seemed to hold shadows of someone else, someone not visible to the eye. A few minutes later, strange sounds echoed in the store. Footsteps, heavy breathing, faint whispers. The sounds seemed to surround him. He couldn't pinpoint where they were coming from. The silence of the store, now broken by these unsettling noises, felt heavier than before. He couldn't help but feel that something, or someone, was waiting just beyond his sight. He looked around, but the store appeared empty. The whispers grew louder. Whenever he cleaned a fitting room, things seemed to change. Clothes seemed slightly displaced, mirrors more fogged up than before. He looked around quickly, but there was still no sign of anyone. The changes were subtle, but unmistakable. There was something, or someone, inside each room. His reflection seemed to shift ever so slightly, as though something were watching him through the mirror. He took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. Suddenly a hand touched his shoulder, but no one was there. Oliver jumped back, his heart racing. Another hand, this time on his waist, gently pulled him toward the fitting room. His breath caught in his throat. He quickly dashed out of the room, heading towards the back of the store. But as he took a step, another heavy footstep followed him, growing closer. He spun around, but again, there was no one. The lights flickered, and for a brief moment, everything went dark. Oliver stood frozen in place. His body was filled with dread. The silence around him was broken by strange murmurs and faint sounds that seemed to come from nowhere. The feeling of being watched became more intense as he stood still. The footsteps were close now, almost too close. He could hear the breath of something, but couldn't see anyone. He was certain he wasn't alone anymore. Hours passed, and Oliver's mind seemed to be unraveling. Every room, every reflection, every sound confirmed what he had already feared. The presence was real. It was in the mirrors, in the shadows. One of the doors slowly creaked open. He spun around, but again, there was no one there. The door shut, and he felt a wave of cold air rush past him. He could feel it now, that heavy weight on his chest, the presence of something invisible, just out of reach. His mind was spinning. There were no more logical explanations, no more doubts. He had felt it, seen it, heard it. Something was in the store with him. Something he couldn't see, but that was undeniably real. As he took another step, he felt a cold, ghostly touch on his arm. But when he looked, no one was there. His body trembled with the realization that whatever was following him had no intention of leaving. It was with him. Slowly, he made his way toward the back exit. The cold air was biting, but the feeling of being pursued was worse. As soon as he stepped forward, a hand grabbed his wrist, pulling him back. He spun around in terror, but there was no one. The room was empty. His heart pounded in his chest as he desperately tried to push the door open. But the door slammed shut, and something invisible shoved him back. The presence was growing stronger. The dread inside Oliver reached its peak. There was no escape. No matter where he went in the store, it followed. The walls seemed to close in on him, and the sense of being trapped intensified. The store, once so familiar, now felt like a prison. The whispers, the cold touches, the shifting shadows, they were all around him. He couldn't see them, but he knew they were there, and they weren't going away. The store fell silent again. Oliver turned around, checking every corner, but there was nothing. The strange presence was gone, at least for the moment. He couldn't shake the feeling, though, that it was still there, watching from the dark corners of his mind. His heart still raced, and his breathing was shallow. He tried to convince himself it was over, but the feeling of being haunted lingered. He knew deep down that something was still with him. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. The store was the same, the fitting rooms, the mirrors, but something had changed. The shadows seemed deeper now. The air felt heavier. And then, as he looked into one of the mirrors, he saw a faint silhouette standing behind him. He whipped around, but there was no one there. He was no longer alone. And in that moment, he realized he would never escape the store. The unseen presence would always be with him.